Recognize, then all but ignore the danger. Fight, win races, then championships. Then, meet with the best from all forms of the craft. Match in equal cars in the four-part International Race of Champions. A pinnacle meeting of 12 of the best drivers in racing. Like NASCAR's Bill Elliott, the pole sitter, his position, like all 12 starters, chosen by a draw. Twice Elliott has won in the Winston Cup cars here in the Daytona 500. He is the only man to win NASCAR's $1 million bonus. Outside the front row is 49-year-old Al Unser of Albuquerque, New Mexico. Al is a three-time National IndyCar champion. Last year, he became the second man to win the Indianapolis 500 4 times. Al was the IROC champion in 1978, but the IROC road has not always been smooth. Chip Robinson is a rookie to the IROC, but a champion to road racing. Last year, the 34-year-old from Old Wick, New Jersey, won at Portland and San Antonio, and the 24 Hours of Daytona. Robinson reigns as the IMSA GT champion. In his fourth IROC series is two-time IndyCar champion Bobby Rahal. The 1986 Indianapolis 500 winner is the new age IndyCar driver. The reigning PPG IndyCar World Series champion, trained as a road racer, but he's a threat on any track. Inside the third row is NASCAR's Terry Labonte, a sophomore to the IROC. At Charlotte in May, he won the Winston. In 1984, the 32-year-old North Carolinian was the Winston Cup champion. From NASCAR, Dale Earnhardt's rough and ready style of driving helped score many victories. 3 times in 1980, 86, and 87, he's won the Winston Cup Points Championship. Inside the fourth row is NASCAR's Jeff Bodine. He is the defending IROC champion, a former modified champion. Jeff won the 1986 Daytona 500. Last year, he won his first IROC start right here at Daytona. 41-year-old Al Holbert of Warrington, Pennsylvania, is America's winningest road racer. In endurance cars, he's unstoppable. 3 times he's won the 24-hour of Le Mans. In IMSA, he is the all-time race winner with 49 victories. 7 times Al's been the IMSA GT champion. Inside the fifth row is Al Unser Jr. At age 26, he has already been the Super B champion in 81, the Can-Am champion in 82. Now driving the Indy cars, Al scored his first win of the season on the streets of Long Beach and was the IROC champion in 1986. Chris Cord is a 48-year-old road racer. Driving for Dan Gurney last year, Cord notched 4 wins at Riverside, Laguna Seca, Portland, and Del Mar to become the IMSA GTO champion. Inside the last row, in his second IROC series, is 28-year-old road racer Scott Pruitt. Last season, Scott scored 7 wins in 12 starts, earning the SCCA Trans Am Championship. In 1986, the young Californian won the IMSA GTO Championship. This year, he's trying his hand at the Indy cars. In 1987, Colombian Roberto Guerrero scored his first IndyCar win. Last fall, he lay in a coma for 17 days after a crash testing at Indianapolis. Since his recovery, Roberto's road has been rough, with 2 accidents at Indianapolis and 1 at Milwaukee. But Guerrero still looks ahead to winning races. 12 of the best, 12 identical cars, 4 very different tracks. The challenge is the International Race of Champions. The International Race of Champions is brought to you by the heartbeat of America, today's Chevrolet. By Budweiser, Beechwood Age for that clean, crisp taste. This Bud's for you. By AC Delco, automobile parts. They don't just fit, they match. And by your neighborhood True Value hardware store. It's a bright Florida sun that shines down on that magnificent racing facility that is Daytona International Speedway, this year celebrating its 30th anniversary, and an ideal location for the first in the 4-race series that is the 1988 International Race of Champions. Hello, I'm Paul Page, and this is the series in which driver's skill is what counts. The drivers come from road racing, from IndyCar racing, from stock car racing. We are here to choose the best of the best, the Top Gun of motorsports. They will drive identically prepared IROC Z Camaro race cars. They are chosen by the lot of the draw. The drivers are contesting for a purse of over $739,000, with over $200,000 going to the series champion at the end of the 4 races. How do they do that? It's a point system. Points awarded. For winning, 21 points. Second place, 17. But perhaps even more important is there are also points for aggressive driving, for leading the most laps in a race. Now, they neutralize this whole system with the cars and also with the racetracks. Back in 1975, Bobby Unser was the champion of IROC #2. And, Bobby, they've chosen a good series of circuits for this year's IROC.
Well, they certainly have, Paul. 4 races, 4 different racetracks, 2 ovals and 2 road circuits. Back to Riverside, California, first time in a long time. Track, NASCAR and kart. Everybody has a lot of experience. Watkins Glen, New York, and then up to Penske's beautiful racetrack in Michigan. And here we are, Daytona Beach, Florida, and just a beautiful racetrack.
And this is the kingdom of the stock car drivers. They do very well here.
Well, they do. And drafting is always the thing here at Daytona. And drafting is NASCAR. They understand drafting. They think drafting. Everything they do in their lives is drafting. And so they'll do that again today. Now, it's going to be a question, the way I see it, can kart, the IndyCar drivers, draft as good as the NASCAR drivers? That really should be the essence of the show.
Well, we're about to find out because we're ready to begin. But first, let's go down to pit road where Jack Arute is waiting.
Gentlemen, you're so right about just how important the draft will be here, especially at Daytona. You know, the draft was founded here, and this man, Bill Elliott, starting on the pole, well, he's written a lot of new twists to the draft here in the last couple of years. A Winston Cup regular, he knows how to get it done. On the outside is Al Unser Sr., and of course, through IndyCar experience, as Bobby Unser alluded to, he's learned the nuances, the ins and outs, and the subtleties of the draft. But the man that may have the most pressure upon him right now is this gentleman, Chip Robinson, making his first IROC start and his first time on the full oval here at Daytona. Now, he's driven in road racing cars around 3/4 of this place, but Chip, you're flanked on the outside by a veteran of the draft and up front by veterans of the draft. Are you feeling the pressure here as a rookie?
Well, there's certainly a certain amount of pressure here. You know, these cars are something that I'm not familiar with, but, you know, I'm just going to try to stick with Bill here and tuck in behind him and pick up his draft. And, you know, hopefully after 3 or 4 laps, things will settle down a little bit, and then we'll get through, and towards the end of the race, we'll still be at the front, and we'll see what happens.
You've already had one altercation out in practice, and they say that a lot of it was close quarters racing. How do you put that out of your mind as you get ready for the start?
Well, you know, that was something that Roberto and I, we were drafted, and we were nudging each other a little bit to help us get by the other cars, and you know, it was probably a little judgment on my part, wasn't the best, just inexperience, and, you know, I learned. That's what I've been down here for the last 2 weeks practicing, and, you know, I'm confident that I'll do well today and hopefully bring it back in the victory circle.
Gentlemen, it's a heck of a way to get an education because right behind him, 2 other veterans of the draft, Labonte and, of course, Dale Earnhardt.
Well, now the command has been given and 12 Chevrolet engines prepared for racing roar into life. Each of the 12 drivers now alone with his thoughts. Ready to begin the IROC for 1988. We'll be back with the start right after this. We're back at Daytona, ready for the start of the International Race of Champions. All the cars started and rolling. This is the speedway where the art of drafting was invented for the stock cars. Drafting will be a key factor here, Bobby.
Well, Paul, let's take a look at some examples. To a race car, air is an invisible barrier that needs to be pushed out of the way. When you push that air out of the way, you make a hole. And drafting is nothing more than racing within the hole, or a vacuum that the car in front of you creates. When you're running alone, the air closes in behind the car, creating suction in the rear, which is more resistance. When 2 cars race side by side, you have a bigger hole, and because there's less air resistance, it's a great place to race for the car behind them. But when another car gets close behind, forming a train, the 2 cars can actually go faster because the back car reduces the suction effect on the front car, and the back car has less of an air wall to push aside, so it also needs less power to keep up. But if you get out of the train, you can very quickly fall to the back of the pack. But the most important part of drafting is that the extra power you gain by racing behind someone allows you to get a running start at passing the car in front of you. This we call a slingshot. There are many more variations, but last year at the IROC Michigan race, Little Al gave us a great example of how it's done. Watch him go high around Darrell Waltrip just before the finish.
Little Al's understanding of the art of drafting earned a victory for him that day in the International Race of Champions as he won by a nose at Michigan International Speedway. Now, drafting will be a key factor here at Daytona today as well, as the field now on the backstretch. The weather, cool, 63 degrees, gusting winds. they could definitely be a factor in this race. The course is a tri-oval, 2.5 miles around, extreme banking on the turns, and very, very fast for these IROC cars. They have been turning some incredible laps. A final look at the starting field, all chosen by a draw. NASCAR driver Bill Elliott, Al Unser on the front row. The second row, road racer Chip Robinson. IndyCar driver Bobby Rahal. The third row, NASCAR drivers Terry Labonte and Dale Earnhardt and Jeff Bodine. Road racer Al Holbert on the outside of the fourth row. In the fifth row, it is Al Unser Jr., IndyCar driver, road racer Chris Cord. And the sixth row, a single car, Scott Pruitt, running alone. Now, 12 cars were scheduled, but there are only 11 starting. That's because of an accident in the practice session involving Roberto Guerrero. Guerrero was testing his IROC Camaro, lost control and tapped the wall here. The accident cracked some bones in his foot, and the doctors decided it would be wiser for Guerrero not to start today. Now the green flag comes out. The 11 cars acknowledge the green, pick up the pace, and we are racing in the first of the four-part International Race of Champions at Daytona. And Bill Elliott in that gold number 15 comes from the pole position and slides up in front of the silver car. That's car number 17 of Al Unser as Elliott leads into the high bank. Bill Elliott out in front. Running in third place now is Chip Robinson. In fourth place is Dale Earnhardt in that lime-colored number 14. They're on the backstretch. Bill Elliott leads the field around on lap number 1. Al Unser closes in. There's the draft that Bobby Unser mentioned as Al Unser rides in that vacuum area just behind Bill Elliott's car. Now into the high bank of turns 3 and 4 at Daytona International. Bill Elliott continues to lead the race. Dale Earnhardt in the lime green car now pulls to the outside and begins to challenge Chip Robinson. Robinson drops low. Earnhardt again takes a high groove as Elliott completes lap number 1 in the lead. In that single file draft, Al Unser Sr. rides in second. Third place is Chip Robinson. Dale Earnhardt in the lime-colored car takes the high line as he challenges Robinson.
These cars, Paul, ironically, are only approximately 5 miles an hour slower than the fastest NASCARs running here at Daytona.
So Elliott out in front. The game is the draft, and you're seeing a good example of it here, and it's a master out in front in that car number 15. The trick is to stay as close to the car in front of you. Use the advantage of a larger vacuum area created by 2 cars rather than 1, and hopefully go a little faster.
Now you can see Chip Robinson getting a little bit offline. That was a mistake. A little bit of lack of experience there. But we saw Dale Earnhardt come right up and take advantage of it. He's really good at drafting.
Of course, that can be incredibly costly for Chip. As we're seeing, he drops further and further back. Once he drops out of that draft, he has no aerodynamics to help him. He'll slide all the way to the back of the field.
As we know from past experience, if you get out of the draft here, if you get out of the train, it's just right to the back, and he went almost clear to the back.
We're seeing some tremendous speeds, 188.28 miles an hour on lap number 1 is Bill Elliott, still out in front. And Al Unser, they were looking on board. You can see Chip Robinson off to the right there. This is from Scott Pruitt's car. Just ahead is Bobby Rahal as they maneuver their way in toward the starting line. And Rahal waving to Scott Pruitt behind him.
What he's waving for is he wants Pruitt to tap him in his bumper. He wants a little push. That's a kind of a common practice right here. If you don't hit the cars too hard, you gently push that bumper, the 2 cars can gain probably about 3 or 4 miles an hour just by touching.
Now we're watching as Bobby Rahal and Scotty Pruitt were side by side. Pruitt was capable of helping Rahal by getting in the right position and run them both forward. Back to the lead. Elliott in front, but take a look at Earnhardt now. That number 14 car comes along. Al Unser. Can Earnhardt hold that position? He does. Slides into second. Unser back to third.
That was a good pass by Dale Earnhardt. Dale had to gamble a little bit that Elliott was going to stay there and give him a pull all the way through. If he would have pulled across him, Al, he would have probably gone back to the middle of the pack himself, Paul.
Looking out the back window now, Dale Earnhardt's car. That's Big Al right behind him. Tucking in Terry Labonte riding just behind him. And you can see that Big Al's objective is to pull up just as close as he can. So here in the opening laps of the International Race of Champions, Bill Elliott is our leader. This is Paul Page with Bobby Unser. We are back at Daytona International Speedway, the International Race of Champions. And Bill Elliott is out in front, now being chased by one of his rather constant mentors, Dale Earnhardt, first and second place. The interval, first through seventh right now, is just 0.8 of a second. As we can see, they are running very, very close. Third place is Al Unser. Kerry Labonte now lies in fourth place.
Well, they're having a kind of wait-and-see battle right now. Earnhardt is about the only one that's done a whole lot of passing, and he just gotten up into second place. Al's right behind him. Now, you see how close he's run. He was actually touching Elliott right there. Earnhardt was, Paul. And they'll pick up a little speed. What they're trying to do is to team up right now, and they would break away from Al and break the draft.
On board with Dale Earnhardt now. That's the leader. Elliott just ahead. And watch as he tucks up. They head for the tri-oval. You can see the giant grandstand that straddles the start-finish line. They cross over it. And so now, look at Earnhardt as he moves up in. Now, depending on which side of the car he chooses, Bobby, he can affect the actual handling conditions of the car in front of him.
Yes, he can. If he gets to the left, as we're looking at it right now, he would pull the rear end of that car in the front of him to the left. And if he got to the right, he would pull the rear end to the right. So depending on whether that car in front is loose in the rear end or pushing on the front end, would depend on where he's going to run.
And as he's traveling along here, we watch Dale Earnhardt whisking along at 188 or so miles an hour. It looks like a bumpy ride, but he has to be very sensitive to what he's feeling in the aerodynamics from the car in front of him.
And if you'll notice, Paul, he spends probably 25% of his time looking in the mirror. It's just as important to see what the guy behind is trying to do as it is who's in front of you.
Well, Earnhardt is trying to pick up the lead from Bill Elliott. Earnhardt, using the draft, comes down below Elliott. Al Unser uses the draft as well and helps Earnhardt get around, but then drops low as Dale Earnhardt has now picked up the lead of the race. Al Unser down below Bill Elliott, running in third place now. First, second, and third all together as one car scrapes the wall coming off the second turn. It's Chip Robinson. Robinson came high off at turn 2, scraped the wall. He's done some damage to the right side of the car. So Chip Robinson has a problem. And the question is, will the yellow come out? Back to the lead now. Al Unser down on the inside. And there's Unser as he tries Earnhardt. You're looking from on board Earnhardt's car. And look at Elliott and Earnhardt waving at one another as they force your brother Big Al down to the inside. Chip Robinson coming in. There is debris on the racetrack, and the yellow flag is out. The entire right side of Chip Robinson's car is scraped away. We look at this accident now from Scotty Pruitt's onboard camera as Robinson scrapes the wall not once but twice. And it was the second hit that really scraped a great deal off the side of his car. A piece of tire laying down on the infield grass now. And Jay Signori and the IROC crew will have their work cut out for them as they get Robinson's car back together. Here's Jack.
Paul, that encounter with the concrete has caused a great deal of problems down here in the IROC pits. You see, the exteriors of these cars are made out of fiberglass. It's just been torn apart. It's all going apart. In fact, the entire right side of the car no longer exists for Chip Robinson. That's going to create, as Bobby Unser alluded to, a lot of aerodynamic problems. And that tire that you talked about, this is all that remains. But an important point to keep in mind is it still had an inner liner that kept Chip Robinson under control. Let's go back up to you.
So Chip Robinson brings out the yellow, and we are under the yellow at Daytona. We're back at Daytona International Speedway, the International Race of Champions. You're on board with Dale Earnhardt, and that gesture seems to be, I wonder what they're doing, because the officials of the race have lined up Bill Elliott as the leader of the race. Now, the reason for that is under the IROC rules, the yellow flag comes out and there is no scoring. So the pass that you saw Dale Earnhardt make for the lead went for naught because Chip Robinson hit the wall shortly thereafter. Unlike the NASCAR rules, they do not permit the cars to race to the line. But now the pace begins to pick up as Dale Earnhardt slams the gears, coming up fourth gear, and the green flag flies at Daytona once again. Bill Elliott leads Earnhardt, and Earnhardt again has the challenge of trying to get around Elliott. Chip Robinson has been penalized one lap because of the pit stop on his own yellow flag. The car badly damaged on the right-hand side.
That's deceiving on this side, believe me, Paul.
Back to the lead now. Elliott leading Earnhardt, and the NASCAR boys are doing exactly what we expected. They are beginning to battle with one another, but your brother Big Al is sitting right there in third, Bobby.
He's used to that. He had probably figured that they were going to team up, and although they had him off to the side a little while ago, it looked like they might break the airstream with him, but he was able to cope with it because he's been running with these guys a long time off and on.
Exactly as predicted, though. Two stock car drivers out in front. Al Unser, who has tremendous experience in this series, and then Terry Labonte sitting back in fourth place right now. Al Holbert also doing a nice job, as Holbert is sitting in fifth place, and he's just kind of hanging in there. Bobby Rahal makes his way down to the pits as he needs... Looks like he wants tires all around the car, Bobby.
It's probably an out-of-balance situation. It's also possible that he slid the car. Paul, if you slide a car, these cars have been running like 191 miles an hour, and if you drift one, a long drift, or call it a slide, it flat spots the tires. That may possibly be what Rahal did.
Bobby Rahal makes the stop. It's 18 seconds actually in the pits, longer than that if you count rolling in and rolling out. And that's the penalty that he is essentially assessed. And look at this. He's under the very real possibility of going a full lap down as Rahal comes to speed, and Elliott and Earnhardt power their way past. It looks like Bobby Rahal will drop into the back of the line. But remember, in the scoring, Chip Robinson is actually a full lap behind this field.
Yes, he is, but of course, being that far back, there's no way to gain it here at Daytona. We're talking about, normally speaking, inches and yards here, not a lap.
You're traveling over 187 miles an hour on board. Car number 14, Dale Earnhardt. That's the leader, Bill Elliott, just in front. You can see him take a look up into the mirror and see exactly where Earnhardt is. I think for the time being, they're content just to run with one another. They said before the race, you got to look for a friend in this one. So for the moment, Earnhardt and Elliott are friends. Watch the rest of the field close up then. That's Al Unser and Terry Labonte closing in right behind. Al Holbert is in there behind Labonte as well. So most of the IROC field still running on that long serial chain.
Well, they're certainly tight. They're all exactly where they'd like to be. If you notice, they back off just a little bit from each other if there's nobody pushing hard, Paul. That's so they can get a little bit of cool air to the radiators. If they run too tight with a car, the temperature will start going up. And of course, if the engine blows, the driver still drops out of the race.
Scotty Pruitt runs in 8th place as he tries to master the high banks that are Daytona International Speedway, a problem that has faced many a great driver over the history of this grand facility. The legend started here on the beach in the 50s. Daytona has been synonymous with speed and danger ever since. The concrete walls and asphalt banks may have been missing here, but the 120 miles an hour on the sand created a special kind of challenge all its own. The two-wheeled racers had their day on the beach as well. The blinding sand was a particular problem for these open-aired machines. By the early 60s, the stockers hit the brand-new 2.5-mile superspeedway at speeds over 150 miles an hour on the straightaways. No more skidding in the sand here. One wrong move and a driver could go end over end. Or over the wall like Lee Petty did in this career-ending crash. Daytona expanded its role in the 60s by inviting drivers from around the world to compete in this 3-hour endurance that starred such greats as Jackie Stewart and Mark Donohue. Dan Gurney won this race despite running out of gas, inches away from the checkered flag. That Continental race eventually evolved into the 24 Hours of Daytona. A field of world-renowned drivers and cars endured the 3.8-mile road course for an entire day's length. The 70s saw the debut of the International Race of Champions. But these all-stars were not immune to Daytona's reputation, nor able to keep off the concrete walls. Cale Yarborough and Donnie Allison took each other out in the last lap of the 500, leaving the door to victory lane wide open for Richard Petty, who was sitting in third place in 1979. The danger of Daytona does not discriminate. After more than 30 years of racing and winning, here the king, Richard Petty, lost it coming off of turn 4. Some said this would be the final chapter in his racing career, not unlike his famous racing father 3 decades before. The road to winner's circle at Daytona can be very rough indeed. At the moment, Bill Elliott leads that road to winner's circle. He runs out in front. Directly behind Elliott is the lime green car of Dale Earnhardt, trying to ride in his vacuum and find the opportunity to dart out and move into first place.
As the race progresses on, the tension's going to get worse. The passing is going to happen. It's very hard to pass in an IROC car here at Daytona.
Watching on board with Scott Pruitt, Al Holbert dropped to the inside. Apparently thought he could get something done. Couldn't do it. There was no position available, and Holbert began sliding backwards and now is running in 7th place just ahead of Scott Pruitt. But they do have 2 cars linked up together at the back. The lead is still Bill Elliott, followed by Dale Earnhardt.
Well, just to give everybody an example, the cars are running 188, 189. That's very similar to what the fastest of the NASCAR cars run. It's about 4 to 5 miles an hour faster than the cars run by themselves. So it gives you an idea what they'll do in a group.
Going back to 8th position, here is Scott Pruitt down inside Al Holbert as he tries to pick up 7th place. He's down on the inside of the track in doing so. Up at the head of the field, it is still Bill Elliott that leads Dale Earnhardt, Al Unser, and Terry Labonte. Elliott has led from the green flag. We'll be right back.
Listen to the heartbeat of America.
Now there's a powerful new reason to follow your heart. The new 4.3-liter V6, available in S10 Blazer. 28% more power than before, and 50% more torque. The new 4.3-liter V6, the biggest engine ever offered in Blazer's class.
The heartbeat of America.
Chevy S10 Blazer.
That's today's Chevy truck.
Sunday.
You are under arrest.
Justice the old-fashioned way.
What are you talking about?
He's talking about torture.
MacGyver. Then James Bond reaches new heights.
Any higher, my ears will pop.
Roger Moore's 007, Moonraker.
Tonight.
It's the right year. Say it out loud. From the fans in the stands, the TV crowd, it's the Tin Man making a big sound in the silver bullet. Won't slow you down. So come on into Coors Light. It's the right year now. Do the good life, yeah. The good life, yeah. So come on into Coors Light. It's the right year now.
I'm Robin Wynn, and you don't have to be rich or famous to get in on all of the excitement during G Auto's $1 Million Corvette Classic Sweepstakes sale. It's amazing. It's fantastic. Just check the sweepstakes sale ad in your newspaper. Come stare at your TV and join me in sheer amazement. Can you believe these prices? Incredible values. Join us today. Save and try your Robin Wynn Sweepstakes card. Maybe you'll win one of 268,000 instant prizes at G Auto and Nationwide Auto Parts.
Knocking. And pinging. It can bring out the animal in anyone. So we developed high-octane Chevron Supreme and added the cleansing power of Teflon. Now you'll be free to go without a moment's hesitation. Chevron. We fuel your freedom.
Be a wheel watcher, weeknights at 7 on 32 WLKY.
Bill Elliott, as we near the halfway point now. And we look back now to 4th position. That's looking back from the bumper of Big Al's car. There's Terry Labonte at number 23. And all of these drivers seem content just to maintain station, keep those positions.
They're afraid to pull out, Paul. There's only 4 cars in the real tight draft right now. If one guy were to pull out, he's just almost guaranteed to go to the back end. So it's going to have to be a little bit of a thinking, see what they can do to try to make the other guy's tires get too hot, see by looking at the other cars whether the guy's front end is a little bit weak or whether the rear end of the car is a little bit weak, and then just start working on it. But remember, you've got to work mostly on the guy in front of you. Although 25% of the time probably is spent watching the rearview mirrors.
They just worked their way past the slower car, the heavily damaged car of Chip Robinson, who is wisely running down on the inside of the race course. Now, while these IROC Camaros may look like the same one that you can find on the showroom floor, they are distinctly different. Earlier, Jack Arute had a chance to compare the cars.
You know, one of the great things about these IROC racing cars is how closely aligned they seem to be with their cousins, the IROC Camaro passenger cars. There certainly is a racy look to the street version, but the race car uses special racing components to beef it up for high speed. A cushy interior is a must for street driving, but on the racetrack you need functionality. Thus the gauges, contoured racing seat belts, and harnesses here. Strip away the sound-deadening material and the wiring and belts for accessories like air conditioning and stereos from this production engine, and you end up with something like this. Both engines start with the same block, have similar bore, stroke, and compression ratios, but the horsepower rating favors the race car. Plenty of trunk room in the hatchback area of this street car, but on the race car, this area is designed with a different focus. Located here is a double-walled fuel cell. You know, this car here can go over 170 miles an hour, but there's one thing that I've always wanted to do with one.
Can I help you?
Yeah, I'll have a double cheeseburger, a large fry, and a large soft drink to go.
Well, let's hope the local constable didn't catch Jack on the street with that car. We look back in the field now. There is Al Holbert, who was just able to pull up alongside of Al Unser Jr. Holbert in that bright blue car, and he was able to push his way very quickly and all of a suddenly around little Al. Now, what in fact happened there was these four finally decided it was pretty wise of us to get together because we can't run it alone, so they were able to close up. Drafting, such a key factor here on Daytona International. We asked Al Holbert, what has he learned about drafting?
I learned that you just unnaturally, you have to keep your nose stuffed in underneath the guy in front of you. And once you do that, it can be good fun. What's really the technique, though, is to know when to pull out of the draft and make it stick. That's the hard part.
Well, pulling out of the draft is not Al Holbert's problem at the moment in that blue number 24 car. He leads Al Unser Jr. and Jeff Bodine. Now that's 5th, 6th, and 7th place, all running together on the circuit there. Now you're on board with Scotty Pruitt as he looks forward, and he is still within the area that creates vacuum from the car in front of him and just kind of tows him along. So 5th is Al Holbert, followed by Al Unser Jr. and Jeff Bodine, and this group is almost a quarter mile back from the leaders.
Yes, they are, and Scott Pruitt, right here we have him, is not a fast track experienced driver again, but he's probably one of the best stock car drivers in the United States. He runs the IMSA GTO, the SCCA Trans Am Series. The boy is really good in stock cars.
So Bill Elliott continues his lead over Dale Earnhardt, followed by Al Unser Sr. and Terry Labonte. We're back at Daytona. Bill Elliott continues to lead. Second is Dale Earnhardt, then Al Unser and Terry Labonte. The front four cars are all kind of waiting station, trying to decide who can do what and when they can do it.
Well, I've been noticing the second group of four cars, the Al Holbert group that we were looking at a little while ago, is gaining on the front group. That means that once they got into line and started teaming up together, they're actually closing the gap. Now, they could get and have 8 cars in the total lead group pretty quick.
So back at the lead, Elliott, Earnhardt, Al Unser, Terry Labonte, all battle for front place. 4 cars run together on the lead serial, led by Elliott. This is a view back from the 3rd place car of Al Unser. That's Terry Labonte just behind. And look at the separation between the first 4 cars and that second group of 3, which is currently led by Al Holbert running in 5th place. Back at the front of the field, there is Elliott, and Al Unser darts to the inside. Terry Labonte takes advantage of the move, and Labonte moves into 3rd place now. So Al Unser drops back to 4th as 3 NASCAR drivers are strung together, led by Elliott, followed by Earnhardt and Labonte. Bill Elliott out out in front. He'll be looking for his first Daytona win in the IROC. He's run in 2 previous events. He was 3rd in 1986 and 4th in 1987. Though if you follow the idiom of racing here, he's in the wrong place to win at this moment.
It would appear that Al has just been passed by Terry Labonte, so Al is back to 4th place, and the second group of cars has really caught up right up to Al, Paul.
So Al Unser drops back into 4th, and when he does so, he loses some distance. This might give the first 3 cars a chance to pull away from that pack. Al Unser tries to lead Al Holbert in to catch up with him. 2 different groups now, and just as we suggested, now the first 3 cars begin to pull away.
Well, they are pulling away, but I think that they're going to be able to all stay together once again unless they start separating and trying to go their own ways.
And as we suggested right at starting, this is the kingdom of the stock car driver. They're the 3 best in NASCAR, and they're running 1st, 2nd, and 3rd.
Those guys know how to take care of their tires. Tires are very important here, meaning that towards the latter part of the race, it's very important to have your tires equally good front and rear so the car doesn't get loose on either end.
The battle is for 4th here. Al Unser in the silver car. Al Holbert in that light blue car down on the inside. And little Al just behind his dad trying to help push him through. But you see Holbert ducked to the inside, had no particular aerodynamic advantage. Nobody jumped down and went with him. So Holbert goes all the way back.
Right back to the pack.
So now it is Al Unser running in 4th place, followed by his son, and those 2 work together very well.
Yes, now they probably talked before the race, and they should team up, and little Al, he was touching him right there, bumping him a little bit. Now they should team up, and if so, they should be able to catch another group and mix it up.
The Unsers hooked up in a family draft. Little Al says it's very important to have a friend.
I think the most important point that you learn is how fast you go backwards if you're not doing it right. And so you have to do it right and have to find a friend and all that kind of stuff to get it done right.
On board with Dale Earnhardt once again. They're in 2nd place. And as you can see, the attitude is almost placid. They simply are staying with one another, allowing the miles to roll by.
Well, I think...
Look at this. Here is Jeff Bodine as he comes up alongside Al Unser Jr., trying to get the advantage of little Al. Bodine finally decides it's time for me to get rolling. And they come very close as Bodine tries to hold it on.
And if you notice what happened is Big Al moved right back out in front of little Al, even though it's a little ways ahead, Paul. Now wish to not leave little Al hanging out all by himself to keep giving him a tow.
The fight is for 5th place. That's Jeff Bodine down on the inside. And on the outside is Al Unser Jr. Al Holbert comes in there and tries to give Bodine a little help, pulled up right behind him.
I'd say Holbert's learning pretty quick.
Back to the lead once again. Bill Elliott leads Dale Earnhardt, followed by Terry Labonte, the International Race of Champions from Daytona International. We'll be back. We're back at the International Race of Champions, Daytona International Raceway. Still some gusting winds affecting the handling aerodynamically on these cars, especially up between turns 3 and 4. Bill Elliott is our leader. He has led from lap number 1. He is followed by Dale Earnhardt and then Terry Labonte. Those 3 running very closely together, just as we see. And then riding behind them in 4th place, leading the second group of cars, really, is Al Unser, followed by his son, Al Unser Jr., then Jeff Bodine and Al Holbert.
They've broken away just a little bit. The lead group is just a little bit ahead. Only thing is, Paul, it's 3 cars now instead of 4 cars. The Bonnie's falling back just a little bit there, but I think that's nothing more than trying to get his radiator cooled down for the last lap so he can really give it a hard charge. Now, even though there's that much of a separation right now between the first 3 cars and the second group of 4 cars, they're still getting a draft, but only maybe like a 50% draft right now.
And Al Unser Jr. using the draft now to pull himself, Jeff Bodine and Al Holbert alongside his father. Al Unser runs in 4th place, but there goes little Al and Jeff Bodine as little Al goes into 4th place. Bodine goes into 5th, and Al drops back into 6th. Now he's being challenged by Al Holbert. Holbert gets by on the inside. They're on the backstretch now. It's a fight between Al Unser and Al Holbert.
What's happening is he's still getting a tow off the other cars. Holbert's just a little bit offline. But Holbert Holbert doesn't really have a lot of choice. If he's going to pass Al, he's just going to have to try it before the other guys get away. Right now, Paul, I have to think that Big Al's having some sort of a handling problem with this car.
The battle is for 6th place between Al Holbert and Big Al. You were on board for just a moment there as they continue to fight with one another all the way around this circuit. Up front, it's still static. We'll stay here with this battle for 6th place as we are on board with Al Unser. Now you can see Al Holbert down along the inside. These are two guys. You really got to trust that guy alongside you.
Oh, you really do. Look at there. They're only running inches apart at some times. And, you know, normally people wouldn't think that Holbert is really experienced enough on these high-speed tracks to do that. But the guy is just doing an awfully good job today.
Well, Holbert is doing a magnificent job, but Bob, you have to consider that he has plenty of experience on the high banks in the 24 hours of Daytona, despite the fact that they use the road course. They use a section of the high banks, and he has plenty of experience drafting. Now, these IROC cars are magnificent machines. They're immaculately prepared. In fact, there's 60 hours of preparation for every minute that the IROC cars see on the racetrack itself.
Paul, it's a year-around preparation job. These mechanics work 12 months out of the year on these cars.
I tell you what, if Chip Robinson slides along the wall once more, though, they're going to invite him down the shop to help repair it himself. Robinson limping around in 11th place, staying low on the course. Of course, last place will go to Roberto Guerrero. He will be awarded that, and as a result, he will also be given the pole position in the next race.
Well, Roberto's a very good race driver. He certainly hasn't had a lot of good luck here in the last 6 or 8 months. Having the accident in the Indy car that he did testing, then come down here and break a toe in the IROC car, that's a terrible setback.
Bill Elliott out in front. Earnhardt is second. Labonte rides in third. They all ride right together as they attack the banking at Daytona International. 31 degrees of bank down in the tri-oval at the start-finish line. Al Unser Jr., Jeff Bodine, they battle for 4th place right now with just 2 laps to go. They are trying to close up and get on that lead serial so they can get in the fight as well. But time and miles are running out.
Jeff Bodine and Little Al know they have to stay teamed up if they're going to catch that lead group to have a race for the end, and there's only 2 laps left. So they're going to be hard-pressed just to get there. The most interesting thing now is going to be is what is Earnhardt and what is Labonte going to do? We're coming down pretty quick just for 1 lap, Paul.
And it looks for these guys like they've decided the time is now. Just about 3 miles to go in the action. The white flag will be in the hand of the starter as they come down toward the line now. And it is Bill Elliott that sees that white flag. If you are going to play the game, this is the moment. Bill Elliott looks up. That is Earnhardt right behind him. There is what Earnhardt looks at, the leader just ahead. He pulls up to the high side. That should help spoil the aerodynamics at the back of the car. Now the fuel tank is in the rear of the car. It is almost empty now, so the car is a little bit unstable in the back end. Anything Earnhardt can do to make that car uncomfortable for Bill will work to Earnhardt's advantage. We're on board with Dale Earnhardt looking ahead to Bill Elliott. Elliott has dominated this race, certainly picked up points for leading the most laps. But Earnhardt is on his way trying to figure out how he can pick up the laps for the lead. Off of the final turn now, heading down toward the start-finish line. Bill Elliott is holding position. Earnhardt even drops back just a bit, and they cross the line just that way. Elliott, Earnhardt, Labonte, Bill Elliott dominates the first of the 4-race series of the International Race of Champions. So the race has been run, and Bill Elliott wins, running right from the green flag all the way to the checkered flag. Second is Dale Earnhardt and Terry Labonte as the stock car drivers dominate. Now, let's go to winner's circle and Jack Arute.
Well, Bill Elliott has captured the first round of the International Race of Champions. Bill, congratulations. Was it a Sunday ride?
Well, it wasn't too bad. You know, Dale and Unser got hooked up there together and got by me, and the caution came out, and that's what saved me, kept me up front. And they never did work together again, so it was really to my benefit. You know, the only negative side of it, they'll have to start in the back at Riverside.
Well, that's an important point to consider, but with victory here today, the question that came up from the booth was, maybe are these cars too equally prepared?
Well, I don't know. You know, I got a good start there right off the bat, and I was able to get in front and stay there all day. The car really run good.
All right, the draft worked to your advantage here today. You started on the pole. You won on the super speedway. Now, what's ahead when we get to Riverside?
Well, I don't know. I think I'll have my work cut out for me when I get there.
Well, Bill Elliott is one that likes a lot of work. He didn't have to work too hard today, but he'll be in the back of the pack next time.
Well, we take a look at the point standings as Bill Elliott becomes the 12th man in the history of the IROC to start on the pole position and run all the way to the green flag. Now let's go back to Jack.
Well, Dale Earnhardt, second place. Are you satisfied?
No, I'm mad. I'm mad anytime we run second. But, you know, it really wasn't bad. We had a green car and has a little disadvantage, I think. But the car was awful tight. We ran pretty good with Bill, but I tried to pull out on him. It wouldn't run, and, you know, I just couldn't get by him. But, you know, I was hoping Terry and I could get together there at the end and draft by him, Jackie. But Bill got to moving around down the front straightaway. I think he had a little stronger car than what I did, and it ran real smooth. So, yeah, it was a good race. It's early in the series, and we'll get them yet.
Now it's to the back of the pack because you finished second. Are you concerned on a road course about that factor?
Not Riverside.
So now it's on to race.